Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to the BeBaby Live Show, coming to you live every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time, as always. I don't know about you, depending on where you are, but right here it is frigidly cold. Like, it is so cold. It is unbearable. We had, I think, like 4 feet of snow yesterday. And today it's no longer snowing, but it's just painfully cold. Sorry about that. What a brilliant idea to keep a phone inside of my office. Okay, so it is, like I was saying, very cold. So that is why I'm all, dressed up. Every call I've been on today, I've had a blanket over my shoulders. So if you are in warmer climate right now, be appreciative. Seriously. Today, I wanted to jump in and talk to you about a subject of parenting that has come up a lot and tends to come up a lot around January, because that's usually when we make resolutions, right? And it is being intentional and purposeful in our parenting. Now, if you've been on some of my seminars before or some of our webinars before, you'll often hear me mention the fact that me and my husband make an effort to be very purposeful in the way that we live our lives and very intentional in the way that we parent. And sometimes people ask me, well, what do you mean? What does it mean to be purposeful in the way that you live your life, or intentional? And there's many different ways to describe it, but I'm going to give you the description that we use in terms of being intentional and purposeful in our lives, in our marriage, and also in our parenting. And for us, first and foremost, when it applies to life in general, there is, culturally speaking, sort of a subscribed road, right? That you're supposed to traverse on, that you're supposed to travel on. You graduate high school, you go to college, you go to university, you get married, you buy your first house, you have children, you stay in your job, you get the golden watch after 30 years, whatever. Eventually you retire and then you're allowed to golf or something, right? There's like this pre-established sort of like road that you're supposed to travel. And your children go to, public school if that's where you went, or they go to private school if that's what you did. If you had a stay-at-home mom, you end up being a stay-at-home mom. If you had a working mom, then you're expected to go back to work. It's kind of like our lives are pre-programmed by our family, our culture, where we live, for us, before we even have the chance to ask ourselves the question of, well, what do I want to do? And we do life a little bit differently, and we do not subscribe by what is expected as the next step, what our family expects us to do, what society expects us to do. If we follow the pre-established line, we would still be living close to where Montreal is. My husband would have taken over his father's business. I would still be working in my 9 to 5. We would have 2 children. We would still be in the same neighborhood, in the same house. Like, we would have a completely different life than we do right now. And I'm not saying that that life is wrong or that this life is right. But what we do is, at every step, instead of just doing the next right thing, or instead of doing the next expected thing, we stop and we think, what do we really want? And so there comes the question of being intentional. When you're trying to be intentional in your life and in your parenting, you're always focusing on the end result. So if you're focusing on the end result with your children, instead of reacting to the behavior that they are showing right now, you're focusing on them as an adult. What type of behavior, emotion, personality, responses, what have you, that you want to foster in them as adults. Well, the same thing applies to your life, right? If your end goal in your dreams, and I'm not talking about realistic goals. I'm talking about your goals, like your dreams, the ones that you would never say in front of your mom because she would laugh, right? If your goal is to eventually live on an island in Maui then probably homeschooling is going to be a better option for you, because in Maui, you're going to have to homeschool, right? So what it means is, instead of just saying, well, I went to that school, we live close to that school, so that's where my son's going to go, is to stop and think, well, do we like public school? Do we like private school? Do we like homeschooling? Do we like virtual school? And to take out all of the options that are available to you, whether you know about them or not to assume about them, not to come in with biases about them, but really educate yourself. And we do something super cheesy. We have a big board in our house, or we buy, the dollar store big cardboard, boards, and we will actually compare them. We'll write pros and cons, and then we'll make our decision based on our intention. So if you're doing the same thing with parenting, it's rather than being reactive, you're being proactive, yes, but you're also reacting to what's happening in your child's behavior, not based on ending the behavior now, but on the long term result. So, for example, if your child starts having a tantrum out of nowhere, screaming bloody murder in the middle of your living room, your first core reaction might be to make the screaming stop as quickly as possible. Take that same situation and put it in a grocery store, in a public place. And your first inner reaction is going to be, oh my God, how can I make him stop as quickly as humanly possible? So if you're in public, maybe that'll be, giving him a chocolate bar or something, because you just want the behavior to stop because people are watching. If you're at home, it might be, picking them up right away, or yelling, or losing your cool, or whatever, right? Everybody has a different type of reaction. The problem with that is, usually that's not going to foster the long-term behavior that you kind of want, which is for them to learn to express their emotions in a healthy way. So with a child, what do we really want? Do we want an emotionally stunted adult, right, who can never discuss their emotions with their partners? No. Do we want somebody who's so darn dramatic that every single time they have an emotion, it's like the arms flailing and they're crying and they're yelling, and they're super unpleasant to be around because you have to walk on eggshells? You don't want that either. What do you want? You want an emotionally mature child, right? Who, as an adult, not right now, but grows up to be emotionally mature. An emotionally mature person is someone who is in tune with their emotions, recognizes their emotions, can associate the reason for why they're feeling a certain way, and will allow themselves to feel those emotions, but in a constructive manner, which means not screaming and yelling and throwing vases across the living room, right? Perhaps it's having a good cry in your room. Maybe it's having a good conversation with the person involved. Maybe it's, I'm going to take a walk, or I'm going to take a bath, or I'm just going to meditate a little bit. I'm going to cool down, whatever your thing is, right? I'm going to go on my bicycle. I'm going to use the punching bag downstairs, whatever needs to be done, right? But having a healthy way of working out certain emotions and being able to come back and have a constructive conversation. I don't know about you, but ultimately, that's what I want my kids to be able to achieve as adults, right? So in order for them to do that, first and foremost, can I scream at them and tell them not to scream and yell and have emotions? No, because that's going to make an emotionally stunted adult. If I immediately fold and I pick them up and I give them chocolate and I do whatever I need to do to make them stop crying, what are they learning? Drama works well. If I scream and yell and throw a tantrum and throw things around the room, I'm going to get what I want. And the problem with that is, as they grow older, those tantrums become more and more intense. And so people are less and less willing to go against the tantrum, if you will. And then you end up with, a 35-year-old that the mother, the husband, the sister, the brother, the friends don't dare say no to because she's too volatile, right? And then on the other hand, you don't want to be too strict with them, because you want them to be able to experience their emotions, but you also want them to do that in a healthy way. So you don't want to like cave into inappropriate or unacceptable behavior. So what situation do you end up in? Well, you end up in a situation where you kind of have to let them live their emotions. Try and encourage them to do so in a healthy, more socially acceptable manner. Okay, probably won't work the first time around. So you'll probably have to do it repeatedly and then have conversations with them, which means if your child throws a tantrum in the grocery store, if you are trying to react to it intentionally with eyes on the type of adult that you're trying to raise, you're probably not going to be able to stop that tantrum right there and then in the grocery store. Because the only two ways of stopping that tantrum right there and then is to either cave or to get very angry. And in both those situations, you're not going to be fostering emotional health, right? Same thing at home. A much better response is to give them time to calm down, tell them to stop, banging the walls, count to 3. They're still doing it. They're going to go into their quiet space or their quiet chair or what have you. They're probably going to have a good scream and a good cry in their quiet space. And then once they calm down, you go upstairs and you have a good conversation, a cuddle, and a kiss. And you're probably going to have to do that more than once. Here's the thing. We live in a society where our society expects children to behave like small little adults. They're not small little adults. They are going to misbehave. They will frequently not listen to you. They will even frequently, purposefully defy you. They will throw tantrums. They will probably hit someone at some point or bite someone at some point. And it's all part of their healthy, normal development. Now, here's the thing. There are extremes. If your child bits another child, what I'm saying is don't freak the hell out. Don't scream and yell and go completely berserk. It's a normal part of development. Don't rush your child to the doctor thinking he has autism or Asperger's because he had a quirky behavior. Like, calm down. Okay? That's what I'm saying. However, I'm not saying that you need to let your kid bite other kids or that your only reaction should be, biting is wrong. Because your 2-year-old's probably not going to give a crap about you being, the biting is wrong. What you want to do is not have like a super erratic behavior or reaction, but you do want to have a calm explanation of natural consequences to a behavior. Well, you bit said child is upset, does not want to play with you anymore. But he was playing with that toy. So you're going to leave that toy to that child, even though you want it. And you're going to go sit there a little bit and you're going to watch the other kids play and you're going to wait. And then once you realize that kind of sucks to be sitting on the sidelines, you're going to get up and you're going to go say sorry to your friend and ask if you can start playing with them again. You didn't scream, you didn't yell, you didn't lose your crap, you didn't run to the doctor to get your child diagnosed with something wrong to explain the fact that he bit another child. But you also did not let him behave and do whatever he wants. And it seems as though in today's society, we kind of have these two extremes in parenting, right? We have the super lax parents who don't make their kids clean up anything. Their kids will eat, chicken fingers every single night and chips. They will draw on walls. They must ask permission to change a diaper. Their kids will yell and scream and jump off the walls and be so misbehaved that you can't even go to a restaurant with them because it's just too unpleasant, right? And then there's the other version of the parent who wants this like perfection, who wants, their kids to be dressed in pale colors and in tennis clothing and to always stay clean and to play with toys exactly as they were intended and to never throw a block in the air and for their routine during their day to go perfectly and for nap times to be the exact same length at the exact same time every single day and bedtime has to be at exactly the same time and absolutely no switcheroo or changes in their schedules whatsoever. So we have like these two extremes here, but the healthy version of this is somewhere in the middle, right? Somewhere in the middle. Your children need boundaries because it is normal for them to push boundaries. It is normal for them to say no. It is normal for them to defy you, and it is normal for them not to listen to you, and it is normal for them to purposely do things that they know that they shouldn't do. Why? They are testing boundaries. What's a soft boundary? What's a flexible boundary? What is a stern boundary that should not be crossed? They want to learn what is accessible sometimes, not acceptable in other circumstances, what is never acceptable, what is always acceptable. And the only way for them to learn that is to test that boundary and watch your reaction. Well, if your reaction is very inconsistent from one episode to the next, they're going to have a lot of trouble placing that barrier for themselves, that boundary, right? If your reactions are super inconsistent, you say nothing, say nothing, say nothing, and then boom, you explode, then all that they're learning is, oh, this boundary is flexible. It moves quite a bit. So might as well push until it goes boom, right? Every single time. You have to have some structure, some boundaries, soft boundaries, hard boundaries, and natural consequences to actions, but while keeping enough space for emotional, intelligent conversations at an age appropriate, manner to occur with your children. You do not want your kids to be the wild children who are so incredibly misbehaved that nobody wants to invite them to a birthday party because we just know they're going to be standing on top of the dining room table licking the fruit in the platter. Okay? You're not going to get invited to the birthday party. True story, guys. Okay? But you also don't want to be the parent who's so incredibly strict with their children that the ultimate response of their children are either to rebel against you completely and go berserk, or they become emotionally stunted. They have no reaction, no emotions, neither with you or with anybody else. Yeah, sure, they'll sit at that table super quietly. That's about it, right? So you kind of have to go in the middle. So when you're trying to be intentional with your parenting, what you're trying to do is to not react in the immediate moment, but to have thought ahead of time. What are the boundaries? What are the flexible boundaries? What are the hard boundaries? What type of natural consequences can occur? And then when that moment comes, be okay, well, this natural consequence we've already established, or, oh, we need a new one. This is a new situation, rather than jumping up and whatever reaction shows up, either to explode or either to try and tame it down so nobody judges you, right? Or because you're unwilling and unable to let your child be upset about anything. They're going to be upset about things. That's normal. It's a normal part of life. And learning how to live through being upset or frustrated about something is also extremely healthy. Because guess what? As adults, sometimes they're going to get disappointed. They're going to get frustrated and they're going to get upset. You don't want them throwing a tantrum at the grocery store because the apples were not at the price that they wanted them to be, right? So you're trying to not be reactive, but to actually think about the long-term consequences. Obviously, nobody's going to do this perfectly. Like every single one of us is going to be reactive at any given point. That's like one day or another, a few times a week, even. But you're trying as a whole to be intentional and purposeful in your life, in your parenting, in your careers, in your marriage. Doesn't mean that because your parents handled, tantrums X way that you need to handle tantrums that same way. Think about it. What type of behavior are you trying to foster? Go look it online. If you're in our program, come ask us. Let's have a discussion about it. Make every decision for yourself, for your family, in your specific situation, not based on what is the normal way to do. It used to be that we didn't have access to the internet and books and all of these different things. So moms did exactly what their moms did, who did exactly what their moms did, and what have you. But that also caused some bad parenting or generational trauma to go from one generation to the next. We have the luxury now that we can take some and leave some. It's not because your dad opened a company that you need to work for that company if you don't want to. It's not because you were born in Ontario, Canada, that you have to remain in Ontario, Canada. It's not even because you started your career as an accountant that you have to stay an accountant. It's not because your mom said that you could never eat on the couch that your kids can never eat on the couch, or vice versa for that matter. If you don't want people eating on your couch, but your mom says it's fine, it's your couch, your rules, your house, right? But always, question yourself. What is the ultimate life you're trying to build? What is the ultimate adult that you're trying to grow your children into? What type of relationship are you trying to establish with your children? Find time every single day to spend some one-on-one time with your children. Doesn't have to be a long amount of time, but it has to be quality time. Have a sit down, do your daughter's nails, have a sit down, read her a book, chat. Right? Go to the mailbox alone with one of your kids instead of the whole clan, right? Being intentional means being intentional in the way that you react to their emotions, being intentional in the way that you act to their behaviors, the decisions that you make in relation to, their school, their education, and what have you. And also being intentional in scheduling alone quality time with your children so that you can connect with them, having open, honest conversations with them for them to understand that you are a safe place. I have one of my friends, she's this beautiful person, Elizabeth Hansen, and she has 11 children. Many of them are adults now. And she told me that for her teenagers, now I don't remember the exact times, but between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. is open doors to her bedroom, which means between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., if her teens have something that they need to discuss privately with her, because there's a lot of people in the house, they can walk into her and her husband's bedroom. They will open the light, they will sit down, and they will chat. And whatever happens in there, they're not going to get angry at them if they made a mistake. They're not going to blow up. It's a safe place to come and discuss as teenagers or adult children with their parents. And I think that's beautiful, right? You can be a parent who has an amazing relationship with your children, a strong relationship with your children, a place where they feel safe to come talk to you without being the parent who gets walked over all the time, who can't go to the restaurant because their kids are so misbehaved, who never gets invited anywhere because people don't want to be around your kids, or whose kid beats the crap out of you every single time you try and change a diaper or give them a bath, or they swear and yell at you and hit you and do all of these things. None of that is fun. You can be a purposeful, intentional parent and put yourself in a balanced way in between both to get the best of both worlds. Be able to take your happy, emotionally healthy children on awesome trips and vacations and to the restaurant because they also know how to behave in public. Right? So that's what we mean by being intentional and purposeful in your parenting. So as you're going into 2022 and your children are starting to grow up, you want to maybe make as a goal that you're going to be more intentional and more purposeful in your parenting. That means don't follow the black line. Don't follow the pre-established, travel sheet, if you will, of getting where you need to go. Make your own. You'd be surprised where it takes you. I have conversations with people all the time and I say, what is one of your dreams? And for example, they'll say, well, I'm not exactly sure. This is a conversation I've had. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that I want to live somewhere warm. I would like to go somewhere warmer. Maybe I'll be a snowbird one day when I retire, or I don't know. And I asked this person, I actually asked two people a similar question this week. And I asked this person, I said, okay, but like in dream of dreams, like if you could do anything in the world, money were no object, what would it be? And both of these people said, well, I would live there full time. And I said, so why would you work towards a goal of retiring there half the year in Mexico or Maui or what have you, instead of working towards a goal of living there full time? And one person told me, well, I can't do that. I was born here and people only do that when they retire. And what would my parents say? And are there even schools there or blah, 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 blah. And I looked at her and I said, does it matter what your parents think? Does it matter what your parents did? Does it matter what your neighbors did? Or does it matter that you do with your life what will make you happy? I said there are answers to all of these questions. And one of the most fun parts of making dreams happen is the journey to get there. But just make sure that the journey you're traveling on is taking you to your actual dream and not like a side version of your actual dream, because that's way less exciting. That's way less fun. And that's being intentional and purposeful in your life. I'm not saying that that dream will happen tomorrow morning. Maybe it'll take 10 years. I don't know. It depends, right? But it's going to happen a whole lot sooner than if you're not actually walking towards it. Or I hear people say, one day I'm going to move to Mexico, or one day I'm going to open a business. And I'm like, cool. Do you have like a time frame? No. Okay. Are you like, what steps have you started? Oh, nothing yet. One day I'll open a business. I'm like, okay. But you haven't started like a binder or something? You haven't started doing research? You haven't started developing a possible business plan? You're just sitting there with the idea that one day you're going to open a business? Well, I got news for you. You're never going to open that business until you actually, you don't, when you say that you're going to do something, open a business, move to XYZ, it doesn't happen to, it doesn't have to happen in a flip of a switch. It can be a multi-year, progress. You don't need to have a pre-established date ahead of time, but those things will divulge themselves as you're working towards it. And the journey is going to be absolutely fun and fantastic to get there. This is the same way with parenting. You have years and years and years ahead of yourself in your parenting journey. And you cannot know all of the answers today. But the questions and then the answers will come to you as you progress forth. All you have to do is keep your eyes on the end result. What type of adult you're trying to create. That's it. What type of dream life are you building? And then naturally, every decision you make, all of the guidance and support and education that you seek along the way, because information is power, is going to be geared towards that dream, towards helping your child become that version of an adult that you're looking for. Obviously, you're not going to decide what type of, if they're an artist or a Navy SEAL or what, like that's out of your control, right? But them developing into emotionally, intelligent adults, that is in your hands. How they treat their wives or their husbands or spouse or what have you, that is in your hands. What type of relationship they have with you, that is in your hands. What type of relationship they hold with their siblings, somewhat in your hands, right? Those things are in your hands. So what you want to do is you don't want to mold the outside of them, the image they give out to the world. You want to mold the inside of them. But that does require boundaries. It's that balancing act. I hope this session was interesting to you guys and that you'll take some pointers home. If you have things to share about this, you can post in the group or you can comment on the thread and let us know of one thing that you're going to do in 2022. Post it on the group. One thing you're going to do in 2022 to make your parenting or your life more intentional. Have a fantastic week, guys. Bye.